reinvent yourself. If you are going to become that girl, you need to officially give yourself permission to reinvent yourself, to allow there to be many iterations of you. You are forever evolving and you are always in your prime. Where you started is not where you're going to go. It's not your final destination. You're always evolving. You're always on the move. You should always be reinventing yourself. One of the things that I think we all need to agree as women, in reinventing yourself, you are going to have people who question, who do you think you are? Let's just take a moment to acknowledge our haters and our enemies of progress. None of your business, none of their business. In reinventing yourself, you are not asking for permission from anybody. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. It doesn't matter what your parents did. It does not matter. I don't even care if you used to go round a stripper pole. I am not the judge. Nobody on this earth is the judge, and no one determines on this earth if you are going to change your life and reinvent yourself into a whole completely different woman. Let me tell you why. Was it not the same Jesus that they said, is that not the carpenter's son? Meaning, how can he be here speaking in this way? Is he not just the carpenter's son? So, you are a daughter of the Most High. Jesus is Son of God. What will they say of you? You are allowed to reinvent yourself and become who God has called you to be. In becoming that girl, you never came onto earth as a finished product. So please allow yourself grace to face pressure and pruning to become her. The Lord also says there's a pruning that goes on. That's reinvention. For you to bear fruit, there are some branches and some things that need to be pruned and tidied up in order for you to become her. The reality in becoming that girl is you are going to face, and especially if you do it well, there are going to be people who will say, who do you think you are? There are going to be people who don't understand why you are now moving differently to what they knew. Can I just say, it's absolutely okay if you go to bed tonight and tomorrow you wake up and you want to do a whole 180. Absolutely okay. You don't need permission. You don't need to announce. You don't need to explain. I would absolutely urge you not to explain and not to announce. When you want to do a successful reinvention of yourself in becoming that girl, you have to do this in silence. You don't need to announce that you plan on making changes. You want to improve the way you dress. You want to improve your makeup game. You want to improve your business. The less you say, the better. I always say, do not operate like an airport. You know, in airports where they announce departures and arrivals, don't ever do that. In becoming that girl, in deciding that you're going to reinvent yourself, there are no announcements that you need to make on the tannoy. You're not community project. You're a woman who is a child of God, and you have the spirit of discernment, wisdom and understanding to know this is not something that you need to share. Quietly do the work. There are certain areas that I think are very essential to reinventing yourself, and I want to dive into this. Firstly, spiritual reinvention. There is no reinvention if you do not reinvent your spiritual life. All you're doing is tidying up. When I mean reinvention, I mean you decide you're going to move from the small studio flat to the mansion. This is the type of reinvention we're talking about over here. You're going from the studio flat to the mansion. If you do not put the spiritual reinvention into it, all you will be doing is tidying up the studio flat. And there is nothing wrong with a studio flat, but if you're a daughter of the Most High, please move into the mansions. In your father's house, there are many rooms. In a studio flat, there is only just one room. So the reinvention that you're looking for is the one whereby you get to move from the studio flat to the mansion. And by the way, we're not actually talking about apartments and houses here. We're talking about you actually going from the pit to the palace. We're talking about you going from being outside the kingdom to wearing the crown. We're talking about where your life does an actual shift, whereby you don't even recognize yourself. Like, how did I get here? The spiritual reinvention means that you are taking time to spend with the Most High. This is where the biggest shift happens. Your time with the Most High is where the pressure on the diamond gets created. A diamond isn't a diamond without the pressure, without the polishing, without the cleaning. Nobody's interested in the rough cut of the diamond. It has value, but the value comes out after the pressure, after the cleaning, after the polishing. You need to go through that with the Most High. That's the best person. God isn't a person, but that's the best thing in order for you to get to where you need to get to. I always say I'm merely a vessel. By all means, listen to my videos, listen to sermons, etc. But go back to that word. Go back to that word if you want a good polish. Go back to that word if you want that diamond to be cut exactly right for you to actually hit your true value. Go back to the word. In going back to the word, life is fully spiritual. You must pray and you must fast. That's where the true reinvention comes. Let there never be a day on this earth that passes where you haven't picked up the word. Let there never be a day on this earth that passes where you haven't prayed. Because to be prayerless is to be powerless. And how can you reinvent yourself with no power? To not seek the Most High's face is, I would say, one of the most foolish things you can actually do in becoming that girl. He who owns and knows everything, seek thy Father's face. So spiritual reinvention is your starting point. That spiritual foundation is where things change. As I will call myself the queen of reinventions, because this is a continuous process. David was in that sheepfold over and over and over and over and over again until the Goliath came in and then he was crowned. Your environment. If you want to reinvent yourself, please have a good critical assessment of your environment. Your environment is what you see. It's what you take in, what you hear. Your reinvention becomes 10 times harder if you are surrounded by people who think in a limited way, who think in a narrative of struggle, suffering, lack. Everything is minus. Your reinvention will become 10 times harder. You need to make sure what you see and what you hear is one of abundance, is one of this is possible because my God. You need to really, really assess. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. The first time I did my first reinvention, I went very strict. I went so strict, my block list was very long. Block. Negative. And do you know what? I immediately saw the fruits of that. Because I realized in spending time with God that I am a full spirit. What I take in determines how I see the world. And in surrounding yourself with people who have a spirit of suffering, glorified lack, it's no good to me. Absolutely no good to me. I wish you well. I want you to succeed, but I can't have it in my environment. You have to be very intentional about who you have in your circle. Please understand, when Jesus chose the 12 disciples, they could have chosen anyone. He knew the characters. This is very, very key. Be very intentional about your environment. Be very intentional about even where you go, what activities you do. If you want to reinvent yourself, you have to be so deliberate. Are you joining the tennis club? Are you joining a private members club? What networking events are you going? What does your social circle look like? And I would also say, because now social circles of influence extend to the online world, you have to be very intentional about what you take in from the online world. You have the opportunity to take in abundance. You have the opportunity to take in success. Choose that. Anyone that is doing their negative Nancy, anyone that's doing foolishness on the internet, avoid like the plague. Because that rotten fruit next to good fruit, what happens? It will go rotten. Your mind, what you see and what you hear determine where you think the limits are. This is why I say the spiritual foundation of the reinvention is key. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can do anything. If you can say to me, darling, I want to open an airline. Darling, I want to be the first person to... We're not flying to the moon, so I'm not even going to say that, because on what actual planet? I want to be the first person to have an international dentistry in every single country in the world. I'm going to tell you it's possible. Why am I going to tell you is it possible? Because nothing is impossible with God. There's nothing that you can say to me that you want to achieve where I'm going to say no. Because the rationale and logic doesn't exist because of God. God is in charge of everything. Your environment shapes that. You need to be surrounded by people who don't have a spirit of lack. Not that you need them to sign off your goals. By the way, in reinventing yourself, again, because I said there is no announcements of arrivals and departures. You're not telling people what you want to achieve and what you want to do. Reinventing yourself. We cannot shy away from, do not shy away from the looking good. Evaluating how you look, reevaluating how you present yourself to the world. Always go back to Esther, because the religious spirits want you to look like a nun. The religious spirits think beautifying yourself is not a good thing. I say incorrect. Bath away. Like Esther, bath. This has to be important. I've said it here before, I'll say it again. Being beautiful is one of my hobbies. Being beautiful and well put together is one of my hobbies. Esther spent a whole 12 months beautifying herself. How are you going to reinvent yourself? I urge you to go into your wardrobe and to get a black bin liner and trash every piece of clothing that has got holes, faded, doesn't fit. You know, on this earth, you have no business wearing that piece of clothing, bad material. Get rid of it all. Get rid of it all. You have to be so intentional with your presentation in the world. Also, to all women, to my girlies, please take time to curate your look, your face, your makeup. I'm going to confess, I have spent 8 months practicing my new makeup look, and it's only in the last couple of weeks where I'm like, yep, we have finally nailed it. There is nothing wrong with this, because you have to be so intentional with yourself. Do not leave yourself to chance. Practice the hair, practice the makeup, try a new hairdresser, make sure your teeth are well put together, spend money on Invisalign, spend money on teeth whitening, spend money on hair treatments, spend money on making sure your skin is well put together. Reinvent yourself. After God, you are the most important project. I have said this, God and you. God and you. So if you decide not to reinvent yourself, why are you here? Why? You are the most important project. This is your time on earth. This is your show. Make it a good show. It's called the game of life. Make it a good show. And you only make it a good show if you give yourself permission to say, I'm okay with evolving. I'm always in my prime. And we live in a society where we want to place a lot of pressure on ourselves. I'm not saying all of this so you put pressure on yourself. Oh my gosh, I need to always look good. Oh my gosh, no. You need to enjoy being you. Enjoy being you. Enjoy the pruning, enjoy the development, enjoy the growth. In also reinventing yourself, I think one of the things that we need to touch upon is emotional reinvention. You, as a woman, it's important to take time and assess what character development do you need. Do you need to be a lot calmer? Do you need to learn to speak less? Do you need to learn to speak up for yourself? Do you need to learn to articulate? Do you need to tone down your anger levels? Do you need to learn emotional self-control? Assess all of that. Have an emotional self-assessment with yourself. Pray to God. I want to improve these things. Spend time with God reading the word. Your character and spirit will change. In reinventing yourself, this is so important because your tongue is a big part of who you are, and that emotional regulation is key to becoming who you are. There's a certain way a queen moves, and she moves with such poise, such deliberate thought and action in everything, and she just glides through. This is one of the areas where I'd say you have to make a definitive choice that actually, as a daughter of the Most High, you will move on earth like a queen. Nobody should, in reinventing yourself, make sure nobody can rattle you on this earth. Make sure nobody on this earth can come and push your buttons. You should, when you've got to that point when you're able to do a full Jesus, let them. You can just observe, I have got nothing to add to this matter. I think it was Jesus and Caesar. I've got nothing to say. Silence. That is a level of reinvention. So give yourself permission to say that you are forever going to be evolving. Give yourself permission to say you're always in your prime. There isn't any point in life whereby it's too late to reinvent yourself. There isn't any background or any situation, any card in life where you can say, oh no, I'm not worthy of reinvention. I'm not worthy of becoming that girl. You absolutely are worthy of becoming that girl. You don't need anyone's permission to become her. And you have to be very intentional with these areas. I don't like to labour on money, but I'm going to end on this point. A reinvention requires money. Shall I just leave it at that? Because God said money is a defence. That's it. Enjoy the reinvention process in becoming that girl.